Yeah.
Recording is.
Okay, attendance.
Tommy Sopranik, Ben Chambers, Roy Stolzenberg,
Here.
Jessica Hirsch-Ballard, Albert Karina Pun,
Here.
Luis Horizano,
Here.
Sandy Shackelford, Christine Jacobs here, Jason Espy,
Here.
Bill Palmer,
Here.
Wood Hudson, Sarah Pennington, Garland Williams.
All right, matters from the public. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak?
There are none online.
Any change to the agenda? No, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the minutes. Motion. All right, good motion. Do a second. Second. Motion for Jason, second for Ben. All in favor? Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, UPWP draft.
LRTP.
We have.
Are you in the April?
Oh, that I do take a call. I think you handed me that.
That was my fault. Totally not.
That was just a passing of the wrong agenda. Apologies.
LRTP.
Yeah, that's better. Awesome.
April agenda. I heard the May one here.
All right, so I'll kick this off and then we'll turn it over to Alan. I just want to make sure I say to this group, thank you very much for engaging in this process. As you guys know, it is a long process, but nearing the end, we had a pretty major staff transition, and the amount of detail that you guys read into this and sent all of your comments to make it a better draft. We really, really appreciate everything that you guys did to get this to where it finally is when it's before us to be approved. So thank you for doing that. And then I'll turn that over to Alan.
All right. Yeah, I'll echo that. Thank you all for your careful review of this. It's been very helpful. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I have a quick presentation. And I just want to make sure you all can see that. We good?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we're going to talk about revisions from the previous version that you all saw, what the final draft looks like, next steps, there aren't many, and then questions if there are any. So since the last meeting we had last month, we received over 80 suggested revisions from you all, the Citizens Advisory Committee, and the Policy Board. And those include a more thorough discussion of the goals, objectives, lenses, performance metrics, and needs evaluation metrics we developed for the plan. I'll also say we received these and we addressed them, so about 80 in total. We made some minor revisions to the constrained and vision lists for improved readability and organization, and we added a few projects to the vision lists at the request of Albemarle County staff. There was a note in the version that you have in your packets that inaccurately stated the thresholds for the high, medium, and low need scores. So the process that we used was a 7-point scale, but the highest score was 5.07, so we adjusted the scale. So the high scores were from 3 to 5.07, medium scores were from 2 to 2.9, and low scores were from 0 to 1.9. The version you have in your packets was going by the 7-point scale, and I had forgotten that we changed that a while ago. So my apologies for that, but the updated version will have that language. We have finalized versions of all the appendices, including project review pages, so a page each for each project, with vicinity maps and more detail about each one. We have a record of all public comments we received, a few other things in those appendices. I updated all the maps, so there's new high-res versions of every map that should be easier to read. I changed the base map, the symbology for most things, and I added additional maps of Charlottesville, so zoomed in so you can see conditions in the city for pretty much every map. New high-res versions of all the charts and graphs, some updates to the acknowledgement section, and just some minor grammar and style edits throughout the document. So I believe we covered everything that was sent in to us. It was really helpful to see you all's comments and make it a better document. So the final draft that you have in your packets incorporates all those previously mentioned revisions. It's fully overhauled. The last version was just a Word document. This one has been rehauled in InDesign, so it's more polished, a little more visually appealing, easier to read and navigate, hopefully. Next steps. So Pending your recommendation, the policy board will vote on a resolution to adopt the plan later this afternoon. As we mentioned before, the MPO may decide to revise the plan at any time. While it must be adopted this month, there will be future opportunities to tweak the document if necessary. And thank you all again for your valuable feedback, support, guidance throughout this process. Appreciate it. If there are any questions, I can take those.
Questions?
Any
Yes,
further comments?
I have a question. We've said the public comment period is open through today, right?
Mhm.
So what if we get more comments?
Then we can recommend it with revisions if you all accept those revisions if they are suggested.
Okay.
Mhm.
And so the last comment in here is from a week ago. We haven't gotten any comments since then, is that right?
Correct. And so what you guys would be looking to do today is make a recommendation to the policy board to adopt the 2050 long-range transportation plan with the revision on page 58, as he stated, related to the scoring scale.
Other comments, questions?
Last minute changes? Okay.
Great. Thank you all.
Motion,
I'll move to recommend the adoption of the long-range transportation plan. Second.
you want, maybe make a change on page 58?
With revisions as noted.
Alright, we have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, LRTP is recommended for approval. Next we have a VDOT update.
Yes, thank you. First of all, Chuck's and some apologies that I wasn't able to make it. He had some outstanding plans, so I will do the best I can to answer your questions, but please be patient if I need to go back and get some additional information. Second of all, before I get started, I just want to introduce Lori, who's on the call today. She's an intern with VDOT. She started yesterday, so
Welcome.
I'm sure she's just finished her first year of school and is working towards a civil engineering career. So we're happy to have her on the call today. All right, so I had a presentation for you. I know we have some time. I'll go through it quickly, and then if you have questions, I'll be happy to. All right, so the first thing I want to do is, this is just a reminder of the projects that we had is coordinating the applications for the MPO. These are some general updates on where we are in the process. As you recall, there was some additional analysis that was needed for the distribution of I-64 interchange improvement study. So we've been working on making sure that all that documentation and all of those studies are completed. And then we're also preparing the US 250 Panhandle Corridor pipeline study project applications. Those are from a pipeline study that was completed 2 years ago in preparation for Round 5 of Smart Scale, and then the Barracks Road study. And then if we need to go through the Albemarle County projects, I have those in the slides as well. But I'm going to spend a little bit of time on the Fifth Street I-64 interchange improvements, because we had the public survey that was last week. So just to get everybody oriented, this is the current location of the Fifth Street interstate interchange. This is what's there now. And the reason that we are looking at the project in this location is that there are a high number of crashes on this street through the interchange, and then also on the eastbound ramp. Specifically, there are a handful of crashes. There are also some capacity concerns, operational concerns both on this street and on the eastbound ramp that we would like to be able to resolve in this project. There are a number of needs that are identified through the statewide transportation plan, VTRAN, including intersection safety, congestion mitigation, bicycle pedestrian transit access, pedestrian safety improvements. And so our goals are to improve the operations and safety and enhancements of modal accessibility. And then just as a reminder, because I'm going to share some information, with the survey results, but this is really an additional phase to public engagement that occurred for this project. The Fifth Street corridor study was the STAR study that was completed. I think it was either 2020 or 2021, but fairly recently. And the diverging diamond interchange was tentatively identified in that study as the preferred alternative for this location. But the study did indicate that there needed to be some additional analysis and review of that preferred alternative. So this was intended to provide some additional information. This is a diagram that shows the location of the crashes. These are rear-end crashes. There are a few other single crashes or off-road fixed object crashes. There was one pedestrian crash. I don't know the time horizon. This was 2017 to 2020. 2016 to 2020. And then this is an analysis of how operations may improve given the 4 different alternatives that were considered as part of the public engagement. So I'll briefly go through what each of those studies were, but this row on the top shows the volume to capacity analysis, which is going to show basically the operational improvements that could be realized from each of the different alternatives that were considered. So the existing condition is 1.18, which means that the volume is currently exceeding capacity. And then you can see that the volume over capacity ratios are reduced for the optimized diamond, the diverging diamond interchange, and the single point urban interchange. We'll talk about what those are. So those are how each of these alternatives would impact the operations. The crash modification factor is basically a multiplier that you use to determine what the crash conditions are likely to be like with any of these alternative improvements based on what the current crashes are. So the way you would interpret this or use this is you would basically multiply this crash modification factor against the number of existing crashes that happens, and that would be an indicator on what the impact is likely to the reduction in crashes. So the lower this number, the fewer the number of crashes you would anticipate. So we can see for the optimized diamond, it would stay mostly the same. For the DEI, it would decrease it by 2/3, so you have 1/3 of the number of crashes that you currently have. And then for the single point urban interchange, it would be 40% reduction. The sidewalk only concept, this would just apply that this was the one of the alternatives was basically keep the conditions the same as they are right now and add a sidewalk. And so this crash modification factor only applies to the pedestrian crashes. And so if we go back to this previous diagram, you can see that there was only one in the 5-year period. That was that's right there. That's the only pedestrian related crash that occurred in the 5-year period where this crash analysis took place. So this crash modification factor only applies to pedestrian related crashes.
So that pedestrian crash was on the ramp.
It was probably crossing the ramp.
But like not, oh, yeah, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, the street is this way. Yeah.
Do we have an idea of what the crash modification factor is for pedestrian crashes for the DEI?
It would have been like all of this is all measures considered in one, so I don't have that specifically just for the pedestrian crashes. And then the relative cost, this is just to give an indicator of how expensive each of these would be. So Smart Scale includes not just the benefits, but also the cost. You do have to consider the cost. So it gives you like a relative scale of which treatments are more expensive, which treatments are. Any questions? Any other questions on this slide? Okay. So we,
Sorry,
yeah.
for the crash, those pieces, the lower the number is better.
Mm-hmm. You're multiplying this times the existing position. So. Okay, so there were four alternatives. We can go through these pretty briefly. If you have questions, we can go back to them. But the first one was the diverging diamond scenario, which we have assumed to be the preferred alternative. And so this scenario is a diverging diamond. It includes pedestrian shared use path that would connect basically to the street house and trail project, so it would tie into the existing project that is under development now on this north end. It would cross the ramp. This would be signalized right here, so there would be a traffic control right there where the bicycle and pedestrian crossing would be. The shared use path would be in the center of the diverging diamond, and then there would be a bicycle pedestrian crossing at this southwest flag as well. And the shared use path will continue, and I'll talk about the details of this at the end. So this would improve operations, by reducing the number of single phases, providing multi-node connectivity, and improves safety. The second option that was considered is an optimized diamond. This would look very similar to what's there right now. The difference is that along 5th Street, on both of the on-ramps onto 64, you would be adding a right turn slip. So you basically have a free flow right turn onto these ramps in both directions. And then it would add a second left-bound lane, turning lane for people who are coming off of the exit on 64 East. There would be an additional left turn onto this, onto the street heading north into the city. And then there would also be a sidewalk on both sides of the road. So this is the optimized diamond. It does have some improvements to operations because it's widening the eastbound. The SPUI is the single point urban interchange. So basically, the traffic control would be there would be a central point of traffic control and that would monitor all movements. You would have the people who were turning left onto the interchange in both directions. That would be a single vehicle phase. So you could make those opposing left turns at the same time. But anybody who is making a left turn off of 5th Street onto 64, that would be a single phase. So it does reduce the number of vehicle phase or of light phases, which would improve operations. It also would require replacement of the bridge because it's a very high project and could not fit into the footprint of the existing bridge, so it is the most existing option. And then there would be a shared use path on the west side of the street. And then the final option that was presented as part of the survey is basically the existing condition and adding a sidewalk. So for the purposes of this discussion, we can more or less call this the do nothing option or the existing condition option. All right, so the results of the survey is that we had nearly 1,000 survey participants, and of those we had 935 comments that were received. Each of the survey takers were able to use a sliding scale here to indicate how they would rate each of the options. So you can see that on average, the diverging diamond interchange had the highest average score of all of the survey takers compared to the other options, including the existing conditions option with the sidewalk down here. Right, so just a couple of things, because I know this is probably something you all want to understand a little bit before we before there's any sort of action taken on this project. We wanted to understand a little bit what some of the feedback was, and so what we did was we did an analysis to determine how many people who commented. So there were 868 people who there were 967 people who filled out the survey, but then only a portion of those provided comments. So we wanted to understand what the nature was of the comments. So this slide right here is just showing the breakdown of the feedback from people who commented on the DDI option. That was the highest scoring that had the highest average score. We wanted to understand what that feedback was. So out of 868 people who scored the DDI concept, 286 of them provided comments. And so of those who provided a comment on the DDI, in addition to just scoring it, you can see that the highest majority of them, 42%, scored it very low, 0 to 25. And then 31% scored it very high, 76 to 100. And the others were in the middle. And you can see that, I mean, is intuitive, probably this is what we would all assume, but based on the general feedback from the comments that we received, those who indicated the lowest numerical score also expressed the highest percentage of negative comments, and then the general tenor of the comments improved or increased or got more positive as the score range increased. What was interesting is that there were still a lot of people who maybe scored this low, but that this is kind of the best of a lot of options that I don't really like. So there were still some positive options, even if the score was really low. And then there were still people who scored the DDI very positively, but still have concerns. And we can talk about what those are in the next screen. We just got the survey results back on Friday, so I didn't have a lot of time to dive into all of these, but I ran these through an AI processor to sort of get a sense of what the concerns were. And so again, I want to iterate that this is only based on the comments that we received. And so people who were commenting were people who had the more extreme positions on any of these specific alternatives, not necessarily, and so it doesn't necessarily represent the overall concerns of those who took the survey, but those who took the survey and responded, this is the general sentiment of the comments that we received. So you can see for the traditional diamond interchange, the general tenor was generally negative. Same thing for the single point interchange. For the optimized diamond, it was predominantly negative. And then the divergent diamond was a little bit more mixed, probably because people have some experience with those. And so people are making their opinions based on their personal experience. And predominantly, so the comments still indicate that there was the highest level of support for the divergent diamond out of all the options that were presented, with some additional concerns expressed. I think very common through all of these were concerns about pedestrians and cyclists. I think this divergent diamond would be different than others in the area because the others in the area don't have pedestrian and bicycle accommodations through them. So I think there is probably some additional effort that would need to go into educating people on how to interact with pedestrians and bicyclists throughout the area. But I did want to give everybody a chance to understand what the feedback is. And so based on this, we feel like both the both based on the public feedback, as well as looking at those technical analysis and the overall cost that the DDI does seem to be indicated as the most effective and most publicly acceptable solution or alternative for this interchange. A couple of things that I just want to make sure that we review with you before there's any desire to take action or make a recommendation on this is that the shared use path would just be crossing these two legs right now. That's because these two legs are one, connecting to existing infrastructure that is being planned for bicycle and pedestrians or is already in existence. And then also because these would be crossing at a signalized or controlled crossing. These crossings on the opposite legs would be under basically what is currently being designed as free flow conditions. There's no stop control there. Yeah.
So the county had previously expressed a desire to see a connection to that northwest quadrant. Could you speak to why they wanted that and why it's not included?
I can tell you why it's not included, and maybe I'll let the county speak for their desires right now. The reason it's not included is one, because right now there is no pedestrian or facilities there. And so part of smart scale is that if we're going to put in some sort of improvement, it has to have a logical connection. So once we make the crossing there, it has to connect to something, and then we get into a situation where we would have to, for that to be an eligible feature of the application, we'd have to extend the shared use path to the logical connection point. The other thing is that there would need to be some sort of signalized control that's put into place in order to accommodate the crossings of those ramps. And so that is an additional cost for a feature that currently doesn't have existing utility because there's nothing that it's connected to.
Were you guys planning to have something there?
When we were early in the stages of planning this smart scale project, we were also dealing with some potential redevelopment in that northwest corner. So we thought that it made sense to include a shared use path on that side. But as that redevelopment has been progressing, there's a lot of topographical challenges right there, as well as you move north, there's more challenges with the creek. So we don't think it's the best use of funds moving forward. So what we've got here, we're pretty happy with.
Okay.
The other thing I want to talk about is what's happening on this southwest leg right here. So the shared use path will facilitate movement through the center of the DDI. There is currently still some discussion on whether this is going to be a 12-foot wide area for the shared use path or 14 feet, but regardless, the shared use path itself is going to be 10 feet with concrete barriers on both sides. So it will have like a physical concrete protection from the traffic that's coming in. And then the distance of the buffer on either side will either be 1 foot or 2 feet.
So does that mean like between the path and the Jersey barrier will have a foot, or it's just the Jersey barrier, which is I assume a foot wide? Or is it the barrier itself is larger?
I think I'm not sure what exactly the consideration needs to be to make the distinction of whether it's going to be 10 feet or 12 feet. It could actually have more to do with the load bearing ability of the bridge. That's kind of beyond my ability to respond to that. But regardless, there will be a physical concrete barrier. The other thing I want to talk about is on this south connection on the shared use path. The shared use path is planned to go to this point right here. There's a driveway and then there's a sidewalk that picks up right there. But one of the things we're not able to do is have a shared use path stop and terminate at a sidewalk without some sort of transition for bicyclists. And so parallel to the shared use path on the south leg, there's going to be an off ramp basically for bicycles. So there will be a parallel bike lane that's being planned around here in order to transition bicycles from using the shared use path into a shared roadway use with drivers. There is an additional improvement that was identified in the Fifth Street corridor study at Stagecoach Road, and so there could be an opportunity to pick up that additional length of shared use path as part of that future application, but that is not included as part of this application.
Is the black line that I'm seeing with like east quadrant, is that shared use path that's connecting with the Fifth Street parallel?
This one right here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
Cindy, can you talk a little bit more about the northeast corner? What's the crosswalk situation going to be at that road?
Yeah, we'll have to make sure that that's a safe crosswalk. I don't think they're planning to signalize that right now, but they'll make sure that it meets all of the you know, that is a safe crosswalk based on the location and design engineering team is pretty much following the PROAC, the public right of way access guidelines. So they'll make sure that it meets all of those requirements, but I don't know a lot of specific details on what the ramps will look like.
Is the intention to still have the crossing be like at where it's kind of shown there, not moving?
Not like further into the development. Yeah, it'll be out there. Great, thank you.
Isn't there like a diverter there right now? Like forcing people to make a right out? How do you cross that at the diverter? Like,
Right out.
yeah,
Oh, I mean, they can put like a ramp through it or the pedestrian crossing through it, yeah. I'm not sure exactly, I mean,
so, right.
yeah, I think that's a very nuanced question that I don't know that they spend a lot of time figuring out that particular obstacle, but I feel like that's not insurmountable.
Okay.
So that's the DDI. I think the Pantox project, we talked a lot about, just as a refresher before there's a request for recommendation on supporting the applications. This includes 3 accurate crossings of it was this Rolkin Road right here on the south and north leg, and then a crossing of 250 on the east side. This will be part of this will be rebuilding the signals in order to have the pedestrian phases and crossing crossing Pantops will be crossing 250 that will be a two-phased crossing. And then the other part of that application is the access management and turn lane improvements. A little bit further down near Peter Jefferson Parkway, so they're gonna close the median access to the Hilton Garden Inn right there. So that would be a right in, right out. And then they'll extend the left turn lane at Peter Jefferson Parkway, and then they will be implementing a fruit cut at Peter Jefferson Parkway intersection that will allow vehicles coming from Peter Jefferson Parkway to make a left turn or right turn, which is not approved. They just won't be able to go straight to the intersection. And then there's also the 50 vehicle park and ride. That's being planned for this. That will include a bus loop. We didn't realize that the arrows on this are backwards, so buses will be coming from Pantops, turn left here, be able to go into the park and ride. There will be a stop facility right there for buses to pull in and drop off and pick up passengers. And then they'll be able to continue through to exit. Any questions on this one? Okay. And then the last one is the Barracks Road corridor improvements. One thing I want to mention about this project is just that the final concept for the roundabout itself at Georgetown Road is still being designed. So I think the latest I heard is that this might be reduced down coming out of the roundabout and going west onto Georgetown. This might be reduced to a single lane because right now there's only one lane further down, and this right lane would basically only be for people coming into the housing right there. So that's one change. All of the access points or the median crossings between Georgetown and the interchanges a little bit south here are going to be closed. The lanes are going to be reduced, I think, to 11 feet in both directions. The median is also going to be reduced in order to make space for the shared use path on the existing right of way. We also have been speaking with Albemarle County and are working to make sure that there are 2 concrete pads for future installation of transit stops at the Georgetown Road stop. That might mean that they have to move the stop a little bit in order to accommodate that, but have a transit shelter there. There's another transit stop near Surrey, which is right here.